Have you ever wanted to work in consulting or for one of the big four, or would I say big three now? Well, I found an interesting and very useful preparatory material titled The Case Interview Secrets. It's written by a former McKinsey interviewer who also worked for McKinsey and got multiple consulting offers from some of the top firms across the world. His name is Victor Cheng, and I think a little background about this individual. On page 6, you can see that he did get a total of 6 consulting job offers from McKinsey, Bain, Oliver Wyman, etc. He also passed 60 case interviews out of 61 attempts. And one more thing about him is that he was promoted 2 years after getting a job with McKinsey directly to associate, which is quite a significant promotion. And that put him in an elite group of top 10% in McKinsey as one of their consultants. In addition, he has interviewed several applicants who wanted to work for McKinsey. So here you see he also conducted case interviews. I've highlighted all of that information to give some sort of context into the kind of person who is sharing this information with us and the kind of insights he will already have. So in this book, I am summarizing the points he's teaching and also pointing your attention to some of the most important things that I think will be of help for you if you ever wanted to work in consulting or pass a case interview or just for general business knowledge. One more thing I will add is that I highly recommend reading this book because beyond the summary that I give, you can also glean a lot of insights like I have over the past few weeks reading this book. So let's dive in. As an introduction, he shares that there are 2 main groups of case interviews, the quantitative assessments and the hypothetical situation case interviews. One point, what is a case interview? A case interview is a sort of interview style that has been developed especially by consulting firms to assess a candidate's problem-solving abilities. And here they put the candidate in a scenario-based situation and try to understand how the candidate assesses the problem, analyzes it, and also potentially solves that problem. So here, sometimes the methodology is more important than the result because sometimes there's really no correct answer. They just want to understand how is this person able to analyze a problem. So that's what a case interview is. There are 7 primary formats of a case interview. I'll be walking through all 7 of them in this video. The first one is the quantitative test. That's the first format. And the quantitative test measures your math ability, data interpretation, and critical reasoning skills, especially for numbers. An example will be, assuming the chart in A is true, assuming the data in chart A is true, the sales of product A increases by 10% and the sales of product B declines by 15%. Should the client proceed with the proposed decision? Of course, in this case, what makes the candidate stand out is their ability to quickly grasp numbers, probably do some calculation, and also recommend what a client should do based on what the numbers are saying. So what will help you pass a quantitative test? Prior practice, being able to quickly add, multiply, divide some numbers in your head or using a pen and paper, and also trying to understand how to interpret data, for example, on a chart, etc. The second format is the estimation question. Now, this one is really interesting to me because I feel like it's a very good practice for anyone working in business at all, especially when dealing with clients. The estimation question is a way to test a candidate's ability to simplify complicated math problems and also make assumptions. So, for example, a question can be, how many gallons or liters of gasoline does a typical filling station pump each week? Now, of course, that might sound really odd. It did sound odd to me, but in the end, what is really being tested here is how the candidate is able to make reasonable assumptions and then using those assumptions work to an answer that would be reasonable and also practicable, I would say. Another example would be, how long does it take to relocate an average size mountain 10 miles elsewhere using an average size dump truck? So that's the second type of case interviews in the quantitative group, estimation questions. The third one is the candidate-led case interview. Essentially, this means the interviewer asks a broad question and then leaves it to the candidate to walk through how they will solve that problem. So here you read, after the interviewer asks you the opening question, he'll promptly stop talking for the rest of the interview, and then the person being interviewed needs to ask questions and request certain types of data which will then guide the rest of the interview, and hopefully they get to an answer. The fourth type of case interviews is the interviewer-led case interview. So this is pretty much the opposite of the candidate-led one. And here the interviewer kind of takes charge of the questioning or the interview. Here the interviewer determines what parts of the case are important, what questions are worth asking, and expects you to follow their lead in terms of how this problem is being solved. One thing that is important for an interviewer-led case interview is that it might be a little bit abrupt. So the flow might not go as you will expect. And Victor clearly explains that, for example, if a case has 4 key areas, in a traditional case, you will determine which of the 4 areas are more important. So that is, in the candidate-led case interview, you will determine which is more important and then go the way you want to go in terms of analyzing the first area, which is most important, and then moving to the next most important, etc. However, in the interviewer-led one, he can have you say what you think is most important and then tell you, let's tackle area number 4. So that might be a little bit jarring, and then you just need to be prepared to anticipate it essentially and be able to follow along in terms of how you solve that problem. The fifth format in case interviews is the written case interview. And here you are given a lot of charts and exhibits, and you're expected to review all of this information and then take a test, a written test, based on what you have what information you have reviewed. This is pretty much more similar to an examination, like a typical examination, written examination that many people are familiar with. The sixth type of case interview in the quantitative area is the group case interview. Not in the quantitative area, actually. The sixth format of case interview is a group case interview, and it's pretty much, as the name says, you're grouped alongside other interviewees and expected to solve a problem. And the hint here is that you do well by helping your competitors or fellow candidates, not by shooting them in the foot. The seventh type of case interview that we'll be looking at in this introduction is the presentation-only case interview. And this is pretty similar to the written case. However, in this type of interview, you are expected to create a presentation after reviewing all the material that is presented to you. So whereas in the written case interview, you write a test or an examination based on what you've learned, in this presentation only, you will present in some sort of slide deck what you think the problem is and what you think the solution will be. and you are judged based on your presentation. I think it was written somewhere around here. Your presentation is the sole factor the interviewer uses to decide whether you pass the case. So that's really important to note. So these are the 7 types of case interviews that are common. In the next video, I'll be walking through some of the quantitative bits of the case interview and how best to ace those ones.